We're right at the beginning of training camp and we've already started best ball drafts. Redrafts about to start in full swing. And of course, the dynasty managers are waiting for that value to fluctuate as we get the news. So right here, I'm going to give you the top 48 wide receivers, rank them, and put them in tiers. We'll start from the top and work our way to the bottom. Of course, right at the top, we have Jamar Chase. There's no question here. He is the 101 overall, I think, in 1QB leagues. Of course, he's going to be the 101 right here. But the biggest thing about this bucket, these are guys that any one of them can finish wide receiver one, have spike weeks, doesn't matter. And I think they're pretty much bulletproof as long as quarterback and they stay healthy. Only shocker here is I am taking Puka Nacua as my wide receiver too. I do think that folks are forgetting that in only 11 games, he had over 900 yards and 11 touchdowns. I think that means something. I know that Davante Adams is there, and I love his upside, and I do think he's going to earn targets, but we know that in the Sean McVay offense, it doesn't matter. They have the volume, they have the scheme, and Matt Stafford has enough in the tank that he can spread the ball around, and I think Davante Adams only adds and benefits Puka Nacua, and they're just that much more difficult to scheme for. I'm all in on the entire Rams offense, so Puka Nacua I want for every spike week because I expect there to be plenty. Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb, I flip-flop which one of these I'm going to rank ahead, and to be honest, they're the same. That's why they're in the same bucket here. There's the argument that Justin Jefferson is Justin Jefferson, and then there's the argument that the Cowboys could be a bad team and Dak Prescott could have a good year and throw often. Moreover, even when Dak Prescott has been out, CeeDee Lamb has still been in and been a quality wide receiver that earns targets. Yeah, he's more on the Garrett Wilson spectrum, but it's not like he all of a sudden turns into nothing like we've seen when a wide receiver loses our quarterback in the past. But that's a pretty easy tier. We'll move on down to our B tier: Malik Nabers, Brian Thomas Jr., Nico Collins, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, Ladd McConkey, AJ Brown. Depending on where I'm at on the draft board and what happens, of course, when they gets back to my pick, I like to get out of both of these buckets or get out of the top and a little bit out of the next one if I can. And I'll talk about that later, but this is still a very good tier of wide receivers. So let's say you do miss out on the elites, or you take Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs, go that route. Taking Malik Nabers, Brian Thomas Jr., that's not going to hurt you. The only ones that I don't love, and I definitely have them ranked here appropriately within this tier as lower upside, is Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, Ladd McConkey, and AJ Brown. I like Ladd McConkey a lot. I've only moved Drake London up and not so much tempered my love for McConkey. But these are teams that could have lower volume. And Drake London, we're playing a lot of the extrapolation game, even though we know that he's an elite target earner. AJ Brown is another one. If only he could get 10 targets a game, because all of his peripherals and when he does produce and when they are throwing, it's wonderful. So you can't really rank him much lower. And if you do have to settle for a wide receiver one, even with one with a low floor, you can't ignore that ceiling and you can't ignore that safety. Next, we'll move down to the B tier: Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith-Njigba, Davante Adams, T. Higgins, Tedero McMillan, and Rashee Rice. Normally, I already have a wide receiver or a running back or tight end at this point. So a lot of times if I am going to take my wide receiver too, it's here. And I know a lot of you think, well, why don't you go and get good running backs here? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. These are guys that even if I am doubling up and drafting in this round as my wide receiver one, wide receiver two, I do believe these all have the ceiling to finish top 10. If not all of them have the top 5 upside that we want. I am hammering this range, and I like the spike weeks for a lot of these players. Jackson Smith-Njigba is the only one where I don't really love the floor play here, but depending on what Sam Darnold does, he is the only target there. So I don't think there's going to be a lack of volume. Let's just say that. T. Higgins, I'm a little lower on than some people. It's simple. Players aren't injury prone until they are. I think T. Higgins is one of those people we have to worry about him being injury prone. However, I do love how often that they're going to throw the ball. That Bengals defense is bad. They still won't pay their players. So I expect there to be a lot of points from this offense. So T. Higgins is my wide receiver 2. I don't love waiting on him as my wide receiver 1. Normally, Rashee Rice would be closer to the top of this field, but if he's going to be missing games, especially in something like the Rabbit and Bestball, really limits his upside. And let's say that someone like Jalen Royals comes in and plays well. I think that limits how much they're going to need him. And I think Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are the type of people that won't fix what's broken. I love what Rashee Rice has done when he's had the situation, but I have been one that has given the warning that I do believe he is more replaceable than what people think. He's primarily running out of slot against linebackers, safeties, and he's turned into a little bit of a slant daddy, which is fine. I don't care if you're in a good system, but when you have competition in, I start to worry if his ceiling is as high as what we think. Tedero and McMillan, he's one where I think we're drafting him closer to a ceiling than what's there, but I'm fine with that. A lot of these guys that you're drafting because they're safe and not so much that they're going to get more targets than, let's say, Malik Nabers, because we already know that's not going to happen. That's fine building your team, especially in this range, of someone who gives you ideal safe, and not what I mean like a Khalil Shakir or Zay Flowers low floor PPR play, but at least a high floor PPR play, if not 24 points per game. Next, we'll move on to the C tier. Jameson Williams, Devonta Smith, Rome Odunze, Chris Olave, Travis Hunter, Zay Flowers, DJ Moore, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, DK Metcalf, and Cortland Sutton. To me, this is the last stop for selecting a foundational piece at wide receiver. From here on out, there's a lot of questions. We start to get to rookies or people you can fade for easy reasons. But here is where I either going to get my wide receiver 2, depending if I drafted quarterback higher, or I'm getting my last wide receiver 3 and I'm starting to pivot and hammer running back, or I'm looking for my tight end, or I'm looking for my quarterback. Almost anything but drafting a wide receiver that I expect to crack my lineup in best ball, or someone who I'm going to feel comfortable setting and forgetting from here on out. I am higher on Jameson Williams than most because a lot of people are worried about the volume. I get it. A lot of people are worried about Ben Johnson not being there. Understandable. But I love the praise that's coming out of camp about Jameson Williams. And if you're going to have low volume, I want the guy that can do the most with those touches. I do think Amon-Ra St. Brown will be the leader in targets. But after that, I think Jameson Williams is going to be the guy I want even ahead of Sam Laporta. He's a big-time playmaker, and he is the only guy who I see as the alpha, at least downfield. We saw that take a step backward for Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Jameson Williams is a lot of that reason. Devonta Smith's another one that's fine. The real gem here that I like to target is Rome Odunze. I know a lot of people like DJ Moore. I'd rather have Rome Odunze ahead of time because I like his role within this offense, and I think that if DJ Moore has any issues, it's going to be Luther Burden. I don't expect Luther Burden to come in and bother Rome Odunze. He has really good peripherals, has really good route charting from reception perception, and was a top 8 prospect for a reason. The Bears are just a mess. I think every piece in this offense can go as far as Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams will take them, and Rome Odunze is a guy that I love at cost. Chris Olave gets harder to draft the more that I learn that the Saints have no clue what they have going on at quarterback, but it's just hard to ignore that talent. Same thing for Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill's another player where I'm letting other people draft at this range more often than not. I just legally can't fade him any further just because of the upside. I actually like Jalen Waddle a lot more for his cost, and that's why my rankings reflect that. This doesn't reflect ADP. This reflects where I'm going to take a player. Cortland Sutton is criminally underrated. You could argue that I have him underrated right now because he's Bo Nix's wide receiver 1, and we finally saw really good wide receiver 1 production towards the end of the season. Will that continue? I don't know, but I think he's ranked appropriately for that price and that bet. Next, we'll move down to the D tier, and this is exactly why I don't like building my team around here. I don't mind having my wide receiver 3 or 4 in this range, but I really would prefer that it's a 4. It's a flex position, not someone that I'm expecting to set in a lineup and forget it. Mike Evans, Terry McLaurin, Emeka Egbuka, Xavier Worthy, George Pickens, Ricky Pearsall, Jayden Higgins, and Jordan Addison. I'm fading Mike Evans. I think eventually Father Time has to catch up. I'd rather be ahead of that curve than behind it, and there's a lot better bets ahead of him, especially when you consider age, especially when you consider that Liam Cohen's gone, especially when you consider that they just drafted Emeka Egbuka and Jalen McMillan is still going to be a part of this offense. We don't know what's going to happen with Chris Godwin, and I have it ranked. Let's say that it is best case scenario for Chris Godwin. that's even a more reason to fade Mike Evans next season. It's sad that Terry McLaurin is down this far, particularly for redraft, but he's not on the field. That's a problem. It doesn't seem like they're going to make any progress anytime soon. And usually, even if they do figure it out, that makes it difficult for him to actually come back and build that rapport and be 100% with his quarterback. And he doesn't have those reps. If these other young bucks step up and really build a name for themselves, that even makes it harder for him to continue to earn targets at a high rate, because this is one case where the Washington Commanders had no one else to throw to. And for Terry, I think that if there's a downfield threat, let's say like Ja'Cory Brooks, that might eat into his role. I've recently had another video back with Samantha Holt on the podcast where we talked about players like Xavier Worthy and particularly the Chiefs as a whole. I think that Xavier Worthy should be a cautionary fade for 2025 because I understand with the Rashee Rice news, you're going to want to bump him up. I think that Xavier Worthy is going to stay in the same role, and them drafting Jalen Royals and Brashad Smith, that gives them that underneath option that Rashee Rice has. And remember that Travis Kelce is still in that offense. So I don't think this is a plug and play option where we're just going to bump up targets for Worthy, even though he has that first round value. We know the Chiefs haven't exactly spent first round picks wisely. My favorite in the bunch is Egbuka and Jayden Higgins. I love the rookies here, and I love the situation. Why would I pay for Mike Evans when Emeka Egbuka is so much cheaper and we keep hearing nothing but great things? And Egbuka was a first round pick. I'm willing to take the value there, especially if he's someone I'm getting for flex value. I already know that there are upsides there that I'm moving him from my flex to my wide receiver 2 position if a lot of that hype continues. Jayden Higgins is another one who's performed well. He was one of the first rookies to get a fully guaranteed contract. They know the exact role for him, and we know when this offense is working, especially with 2 outside receivers, because people forget that Tank Dell played Z. He played on the outside. He wasn't just a strict slot. Can be effective in this offense and give you wide receiver 1, top 5 value with Nico Collins, and Jayden Higgins easily could have wide receiver 2, if not higher value. He's someone that I don't hate clicking the button. And if anything, I have to stop my finger, especially head to someone like Jordan Addison, who, if you don't like Rashee Rice, well, let me tell you about Jordan Addison, who has the same problem. And he's a wide receiver 2, if not third target on his team when you consider they still have Aaron Jones and TJ Hockenson. And we'll finish off with the E tier. Jayden Reed, Matthew Golden, Jacoby Myers, Chris Godwin, Deebo Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Brandon Aiyuk, Luther Burden, Stefon Diggs, and Kyle Williams. This is the baggage tier. These last 2 tiers and beyond, I'm really picking and choosing my shots here. At this point, you've already filled out a lineup per se of people that you really know and feel confident are going to crack your lineup in best ball, or you could put them in spots and hopefully potentially set it and forget it. The players I try to avoid: Chris Godwin, not on the field, older player, still recovering from an injury. Deebo Samuel still can't beat the calorie counter, and he's on a new team, and he's coming off a down year. I don't think just moving to a different situation fixed the problems that he had as a 49er. Khalil Shakir is the type of player that's a 4 play. He's just going to be a stopgap in your flex position. The real value here is within the rookies: Luther Burden III and Kyle Williams. Kyle Williams' biggest competition, Pop Douglas, who I think is valid competition, but Stefon Diggs, who at this point in his career is a slot player. Is he a good one who earns targets? Yes, but he is coming off an injury as well, and he's had a fun offseason. I'm not saying it matters, but it could be something. Kyle Williams and Luther Burden do find themselves in ambiguous situations and have the talent to where they can vastly outperform their draft position if there's injury, or even just by earning their own targets. Those are 2 guys that I'm looking to get in fantasy football if I'm going to take my shots in this range. Well, that was 48 wide receivers that I ranked and tiered just for you guys. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button if you like content like this. If you want to get on the fast draft action, you can use my code JAG on the screen, where we give you a $50 deposit match. Or if you want in on our Fast Draft Friday deals, where we're giving away opportunities for you to play in our tournaments, go and click the link into our Discord and get in on that action today. Love you guys. We'll see you on the next one. You